Hello everyone, my name is Joshua George and today I'm going to be talking about the development of an oocyte. Give me a second, let me just share my screen. Yeah, it should be visible to you as of now. Okay, the development of an oocyte. Okay, so during fetal development, your oogonia basically oogonia or oogonia basically undergoes something called mitotic division, and this is basically the division of somatic cells, and they divide this way to form primary oocytes. These primary oocytes end up being arrested in something called prophase 1. So there are multiple stages for mitosis. Um, you start off with the interphase, then you have prophase, then you have a meta, ana, and telophase. But these oocytes, the primary oocytes in particular, they arrest or they stop mitosis at prophase 1. Right? After prophase 1, they undergo meiosis until the time of puberty. Right? So meiosis is more specifically catered towards gametes, whereas mitosis is for somatic cells. Right before ovulation, meiosis 1 forms something called a secondary oocyte. A secondary oocyte is a secondary follicle essentially, right? So a secondary follicle gets formed, and when a secondary follicle gets formed, another polar body gets reproduced called another polar body. I mean, just you can just refer to it as a polar body. And if the secondary oocyte gets fertilized by sperm during the stage of fertilization, right? After ovulation occurs, if it does get fertilized, meiosis 2 gets completed and a second polar body is formed, right? So essentially what it's basically doing is the oocyte, the secondary oocyte gets fertilized, and once ovulation occurs, ovulation first occurs, then it gets fertilized, and then the secondary follicle starts to form a zona pellucida and a chrono radiata around it. Okay, so that is essentially the gist of the production of an oocyte. Here is a much more nicer diagram to highlight how exactly the oocyte gets formed, right? I won't get into the aspect of chromosomal development in each of the oocytes and how it gets passed on during mitosis and meiosis, but this just gives you a better understanding of how exactly it matures as from a primary follicle all the way to where it forms a secondary oocyte, and the secondary oocyte gets released. And once the oocyte gets fertilized, it continues on to implant itself onto the uterus. Thank you for listening.